All right, we are live. Welcome back to the PagerDuty Twitch stream. I'm Mandi Walls, DevOps advocate at PagerDuty. With me today, it's a trader.
Julie Gunderson. I am a senior reliability advocate at Gremlin, former DevOps advocate at PagerDuty with Mandi. So we tend to have way too much fun when we're hanging out together.
Exactly. It's a good time. It's a good time. Julie, what are you going to tell us about today?
Well, Mandi, I think we might just talk about chaos engineering and incident response. Can you imagine that?
How
right?
about
that? So
what is chaos engineering?
Well, you know, I did this a while back and I did a wrong answers only on what chaos engineering is. Is chaos engineering maybe, I don't know what happened with Facebook the other day? I would say not, right? Sorry, too soon?
Well, that's what we were just talking. I was on another channel just before this, and yeah, like that's what we were talking about. So, shout out to Scott who came over from the Alma channel to hang out with us today.
Hey, Scott. You know, chaos engineering. A lot of people think it's just about breaking things. Let's just break things on purpose, and that is something that we talk about. But it's more than just breaking things, right? It's about having an idea, having a hypothesis, like following the scientific method and understanding that if we're looking at breaking things, what do we think is going to happen? We're injecting a system with something that basically has the potential to disrupt it so that you can really just identify where those weaknesses are, right? What would your wrong answer be for chaos engineering, Mandi?
Oh, geez. It's like just pulling the plug on something and praying.
I mean, that did happen. What was it? Was it British Airways that went down, something like millions and millions of dollars, stranded passengers because some power thing failed years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like there's all kinds of horror tales about what if under the cover is really the fragility of all the stuff that we run, right? Like all of the horrible things that might happen because while we have tried to decouple and build in resiliency and put some like help into everything, it's all still hope and duct tape.
Hope and prayers. Yep. And I mean, our systems are complex. They're so complex now. It's not like you can hold the complete architecture of a system in your head anymore, right?
And there were days that you could do that. Like I still have nightmares about the architecture of AOL.com. Like you want to talk about the databases that we put together. Like we used to have this thing called Atomics that ran inside of MySQL. I could draw half of it for you, but nowadays, like stuff's just too crazy.
It is. And then like, I was actually watching one of Jason Yee's videos, which you can find it on YouTube. It's really great. It's about the known knowns, the unknown knowns, the known unknowns, the unknown unknowns, and how do we learn about our systems? I mean, Matt Stratton, I think, was the one that said, our systems can't talk to us directly. We have to talk to them through a proxy. So incidents are gifts, right? They're a way for our system to tell us something about themselves. And, you know, just recently coming from PagerDuty, what did we talk about all the time? Incident response,
right? Incident management. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And like a big thing was talking about practicing and preparing your people and building that culture because, I gave a talk about how you can't buy DevOps and how just buying a tool doesn't make your organization reliable, doesn't make your organization a DevOps organization, right? There's so much more that goes into it. And a big part of that is the culture. Mm-hmm. And I think chaos engineering really plays into that too, because we're teaching a culture of resilience, a culture of accepting failures. Failures are gifts because we're learning. But how do we proactively learn?
Mm-hmm. Yes, right. So when we talk about incident response at PagerDuty, we talk about learning the methodology of actually managing the incident. And we go through training your incident commanders, having that kind of muscle memory when you're in a high stress incident, something's going on, there's a million things happening. Like, what are you actually going to do? It's kind of like responding to a fire, right? We use the sort of the fighting model for that and working through the cultural and interpersonal part of it, but underlying it to actually get that practice. Like you don't really want to just yank a power cord out and see what crashes.
Yeah. And like some people too think that with chaos engineering, it's about testing your people or keeping your people on your toes. Like, I want to see if Mandi's going to answer that page. And so we're going to surprise her with something. Like, that's not the goal of it at all. We're testing our systems. We're not testing our people. And so that's one thing that we talk about. I talked about it before I joined Gremlin. You want to be open and upfront and honest about what's going on. We are running these experiments. You also want people in the organization to know that there are experiments running, especially if something happens that you weren't planning for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about helping your people understand these processes. So one of the things that was fun that we did together actually before when I worked at PagerDuty with Gremlin. Yeah. I know who I work for today. But we had this great joint workshop where we would actually practice incident response with chaos engineering so that people could get used to that process of, here's the incident commander. Here is how you handle those anti-patterns of people just showing up and starting to spew off questions. It was a great way to teach the organization to kind of build that cultural muscle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So now we're going to talk a bit about like the actual mechanics of like proving that what you're doing to the system is actually helping in the long run as you're building in resiliency and things like that.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that's really important is first, you want to ensure that your systems are safe prior to launching attacks. And so that's one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit is about, thinking through your hypothesis, thinking through those abort conditions, but then also building that safety in. So at Gremlin, we have a halt all button, this big red button that you can halt an experiment if it's passing a threshold. And you really want to look at those abort conditions and tying that to that customer experience, right? Because we're all used to this. And sometimes we can forget about the other people on the other end that might be trying to watch only murders in the building, and then you can't watch it. By the way, great show, highly recommended. Okay. Little off topic there. So that's one of the things that I wanted to show is like, how do we add those status checks in? How can we add some safety in? And so that's what we're going to do today is talk about like, how do we make sure before we run our experiments, how do we make sure that when we run those, there aren't any major incidents going on?
Awesome.
So, Mandi, you want to help me share my screen here?
Yes, absolutely. Let's actually show how all this stuff works.
Yeah. And so we're going to start out in PagerDuty. So what we're going to do is we are going to set up some experiments with a scenario. And in the scenario where we're going to increase our blast radius. So we're going to start small. We're going to increase our blast radius. We're going to set up some safety checks. So to set up safety checks, I'm just going to click right here. If you're in Gremlin, that's app.gremlin.com. And we have a free Gremlin, which I think Mandi has all these links all built in for everybody. We can just start by creating a scenario. So you can see that here. So in order to create a scenario, Mandi, what do you think? Should we fill up some disk space or run some latency attacks today?
Oh, well, let's try some latency today.
Okay, so let's try some latency attacks with continuous status checks. It's almost like there's a name already in here. So we're going to run these against the online boutique shop that we have set up and see what happens with our latency attacks. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to add a status check so that we can make sure that our systems are safe and that we're not running any attacks right now while there's a major incident going on. So we're going to run this status check with PagerDuty. One of the awesome features that Gremlin has, there's a couple of ways that you can do status checks. You can add each one in manually after you add a new attack, or you can click this amazing button right here that allows you to continuously run a status check during your scenario. So let's go ahead and run a status check. We need to first go over to PagerDuty and get an API key. So that's really
a million freaking screens.
I do have a million screens. Actually, and you're only looking at one monitor. So there's a whole bunch of other screens. So once you're in your PagerDuty account, you're going to go ahead and create an API access key. Now, I've already created one for this, but just for demonstration purposes, you want to create that as a read-only API key, because what we're doing is we're hitting that endpoint URL and we're checking against that.
But we're not going to make any changes to PagerDuty from Gremlin.
Nope, we're just checking PagerDuty.
Okay.
So once we've got that API key set, we'll flip through the multiple screens that we have. Make sure you save that API key somewhere safe. And we're going to go ahead and give our status check a name, right? So our status check name is going to be, let's say, verify there are no open incidents in PagerDuty.
Okay.
I can't type with people watching. It's terrible, really.
Oh, there's nobody watching.
Thank you for that, Mandi.
I'm helping you out. It's okay. We've had some lovely people in the audience today. It's awesome.
So what does this status check do? So let's say this status check will use the PagerDuty API to get a list of triggered incidents. So let's go ahead and pop that into our description. It's really hard for me to type out PagerDuty anymore because I'm so used to shortening it to PD. So I apologize if I do that.
It's all right. We'll fix it in post.
Oh, there you go. Because there is post.
Right. Of course there is.
Let's say it will pass if the number of triggered incidents is 0, because we don't want to run any chaos engineering experiments while there is a current incident.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then just to let you know, you can definitely go to the PagerDuty API documentation if you need any help with creating that PagerDuty API or any questions around that. So as we add this status check and we're checking the endpoint, we're going to drop that down to PagerDuty. And then you can find in the PagerDuty the documentation on what you want to enter here. And so what do we want to enter? We want to enter that we're checking for our incidents that are triggered.
Okay.
Then we need to bring over our PagerDuty API key. So let me grab that really quick. Thank you, Scott McAllister, for drilling it into my head with the token.
Yes. It's a little clumsy, but yeah.
And we can actually test our request right now. So let's see if this works, if it's passed. All right. There we go. This has passed. Now that we've set up, we need to add some additional information to configure this. Because the PagerDuty API is going to return that JSON object with incidents, we want to enter that information, right? So we're going to go ahead and pop in, and I will shoot a link out to all this documentation too. The incident link. So we have a number of incidents is equal to 0. That means that our status check will pass. Let's test that out. All right.
Okay, so now since we sent this is the global API key for your entire account. So this is looking across every service and everything that you have configured in PagerDuty and will halt your experiments for absolutely everything. So it's not limited to just the stuff that your team owns or anything like that, because your chaos experiment might have impact across all the things on your network.
It can. And that's, again, why you want to have, just kind of going back to those best practices, that's why you want to have those experiments, scheduled or people aware of those. So that if they do impact other people, they're aware. Also, maybe carry the pager while you're running some experiments. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this to the scenario that we're going to create so that we don't have to manually go in and run a bunch of attacks, increasing the latency every time. We can automate this, and it's going to go ahead and automatically run that for us without having to, because we hit that continuous button. Otherwise, you can add a status check wherever you would like.
Oh, okay.
So let's go ahead and add a new attack. What do you say, Redis cart?
Oh, sure. Okay. Oh, this is a hipster store, right?
Oh, yes, we are playing in the hipster shop too. And so let's see, we are going to do a latency attack. All right, let's say 60 seconds. We'll delay it by 100 milliseconds. And then we're going to add this to our scenario. Now, we're going to add a new attack, and we're going to increase the latency on this. So as we add the new attack here, what should we pop up to? What do you say, 300, Mandi?
Sure. Yes.
All right. Let's do that. And as you can see, we're verifying continuously that there are no open incidents in PagerDuty. And I'll show what it looks like when we do end up with an incident.
Yeah,
so
okay.
See how that it does it. And then let's add one more attack here. You can add as many as you want. Let's go up to 1,000. No. Here we go. We're going to add this to our scenario, and we are going to save our scenario. And now let's go ahead and run our scenario. And as we run this, we're currently in the process of verifying that there's no open incidents within PagerDuty. And we can take a look here. And now we're in the process, so we should be, all right, so our attack is running. So if we go over to our Datadog dashboard to see what's going on, we can pay attention to what is currently happening in our systems, in our attack. And then this online boutique that we're using, which is the hipster shop, we can see if we are experiencing any issues with our hipster shop. And really, what do we expect to happen? Maybe not much with just, our latency set at 100. But as we're going through this, we're going to see that latency increase. And then we can pay attention to our monitors. We can see what will happen. So, Mandi, what do you think is going to happen here?
I would think that some kind of front end request is going to slow down if you're slowing the cache down.
Right. But at what level? And that's the thing that we want to look at. So we think it's gonna, right? And I think normally it really does happen around that 300 time frame. So as this is running, when I was playing around with this, I had it set to run for way too long, and we would have just been sitting here all day talking about stuff. But we can just kind of keep playing around. We're watching our dashboards. We're seeing what happens.
Yeah.
One of the things that we want to pay attention to, where, yes, we're verifying continuously in PagerDuty that there are no open incidents, but let's say that we're starting to see our customer experience degrade. We can actually halt our experiment with this handy dandy red button right here.
Okay.
And that's really important to think about what your customers are experiencing.
Right. Because we're testing in prod.
We are testing in prod. And I mean, absolutely start testing. You don't have to run chaos engineering experience in production, but eventually you do want to get there, right? Because
you want to know where your production is weak.
Absolutely. But that's why we want to start out with the blast radius being smaller so that we can see what's going to happen. And let's see if I can place my order here. Looks like things are still moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
Not having too much of a problem. Okay, we're seeing some completed web requests going down. And that's the important thing, is to observe what's going on in your system, right? We are seeing that we still have our recommendations. That vintage camera really is 20% off right now.
How can you pass that up?
I mean, right? I think it'd even be better if you could just add your phone into the back of that. But let's see what happens when we trigger an incident in PagerDuty.
Julie, there's a question in the chat before you get too far away from the Gremlin stuff. Does Gremlin have an API that allows you to create and trigger those scenarios from another tool or from the command line or?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And Mandi, why can't I see the chat?
It is listed as comments on the right-hand side of your screen in StreamYard.
Thank you. Here. Oh, wow. I didn't see this entire chat here.
Oh, Scott's helping us out today. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Scott. Why? I can't force Mandi here. Will you just post this? For some reason, it's not letting me. Oh, you know, here, send that. Here's some information on how you can do that. Thanks, Mandi.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm going to quickly trigger an incident in PagerDuty so that we can see what happens to our status check when there is an incident. Right. So unfortunately, I think I did it just a little bit too late, or it stopped it right here. Client aborted. And PagerDuty is now calling me. Call me every time they're
excellent. Yeah, that's what we love. I like to hear what everybody has as their chimes for PagerDuty when we are on these calls.
You know, I'm still in the barbershop quartet mode.
Oh, okay.
So what we want is we want to make sure that those status checks will halt that experiment if there's an incident. And you can do this really, you can add status checks with, I'm going to resolve this here now. You can add status checks really to any of your scenarios. And it's just one of those safety features. Now I'm going to try to look at the comments here because anybody who knows me knows that I can't type or read, multitask and talk at the same time. Thanks for posting that, Mandi, on what we were going to attack there.
Cool.
Okay. The question is, can you do the inverse? Can Gremlin register a lab? And if someone goes into PagerDuty and opens an incident, they get a message like Gremlin is doing some stuff you might want to check out and see if that's the cause of your outage. I actually do not know.
You need to post change events when you start a thing. That would be super fun.
I do not know the answer to this question.
I think we might have to work on this in the PagerDuty garage.
I think we might need to too. Here, I am.
That's a good question. And yeah, we'll definitely
going to try to find an answer to that one, actually. So great question. Yeah. Don't know the answer. Gonna look it up. But yeah, so there's quite a bit that you can do with Gremlin. I love the scenarios. Actually, I was just on a boot camp. So we run boot camps. And I was just on a boot camp, and it was a really great one because teams will sometimes try to do this, but they were increasing the latency. Stump the presenter, win candy.
Win candy. To work on that.
I think it's Halloween candy specifically that you should get to win. So when we were running a boot camp and, they wanted to see what happened as the latency increased, right? But again, you can go in and you can run these individual attacks, or you can set it to go ahead and increase that blast radius automatically for you. And so that's one of the things that I really love the most. And again, it's because it's about that safety feature. And you can do that with disk attacks. You can really do that with all of these attacks, and then look at how your systems are running. And the Gremlin status checks, they're really flexible. And so you're using your endpoints from monitoring tools like Datadog, right? New Relic, whatever it is. And you want to make sure that you're checking your SLOs and your error budgets, right? Mandi, I do know that we actually give a talk about that.
Yeah, we have one running at the end of the month for folks. And we talked with Liz Fong Jones on Tuesday on the stream, and she went over some of this stuff too from the Honeycomb side. As far as like meeting all of those, using that as a focus for your things that you're improving. And then when you layer on then your chaos engineering and these practices, gives you a place to find your weaknesses and then pinpoint where your utilities and where your your resources are best deployed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm in the process of reading the SRE book from Google. I know I'm a little late to the game, like 5 years late to the game in reading the book, right? And right now we're still in the intro phases of the book. I'm still in the intro phases of the book where they are talking about error budgets, right? What did they say? I think did I say this to you, Mandi, yesterday? It might have been somebody else that really an SLO of 100%. Only makes sense for pacemakers and your brakes, your vehicle brakes, right? And when it's 99.999, your users generally don't see that 0.001, right? That doesn't make an impact on them. But one of the things with chaos engineering that we are trying to do is spotlight the areas where your users may be impacted that you haven't thought about. Like, don't be caught off guard. And yay, webhooks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, you were just doing this. I think I can actually maybe stop sharing my screen now.
Oh, okay.
But Mandi, you just talked about this, and I'm really bummed. I was actually in a boot camp, so I couldn't go to your last Twitch on your marathon Twitch day. But let's talk about the Facebook thing. There's been a lot of questions. We've actually gotten a lot of questions in the chaos engineering community.
Yeah.
Could this have been prevented if they were practicing chaos engineering? And there's the concept of, yes, you can prevent things, but there's also the concept of you can be more prepared with how you're responding to your incidents, making sure that you have the appropriate documentation, making sure people know where to access that documentation, making sure folks are aware of where to look for things. Can you log into the systems you need to log into?
That is evidently a question that needs to be asked. Yes.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but what do you think, Mandi?
Oh, I think it's all insane. I will say we definitely beat the Facebook thing to death on the Alma channel directly before this. So twitch.tv/tryalma, ALLMA. They are PagerDuty friends. We have an integration with them. So you can go back and listen to all of our nonsense on that. But like the actual, like, nobody but Facebook is going to have Facebook-sized problems, right? Like there's probably no one else on the planet running their own networking gear that they built themselves specially, that they're then running BGP on all of their inter-data center networks. Like, they are the special snowflakes of that world. But for the rest of us, mere mortals living out here in the rest of the world, the improvement of your practices, right, from just running your stuff to then putting your monitoring and observability tools in, getting your basic metrics collection, getting your traces from your observability tools, and then leveling up to the next step where you are getting to the point where, okay, here's what things look like on a good day. And you can kind of, like, you're watching the Matrix, and you see the blinking lights in the normal day, but then if your data set isn't big enough, you don't know what things look like when something goes wrong. You may not have seen an instance where you've lost a disk in your database replica. You have not gone to the point where the network connection has gone down between the multi-clouds that you've decided to deploy to. And this gives you an opportunity to take a look at all that stuff.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the metrics. Okay, to be fair, in the talk that I used to give on the psychology of chaos engineering, I drove it home that you have to have all these baseline metrics first. You just have to have baseline metrics. Baseline metrics, it's super important. Turns out, though, that was kind of a fear point for folks going into chaos engineering, because maybe they didn't have that. Maybe their monitoring wasn't set up right. You can actually also use chaos engineering to verify your monitoring and start there. So, there are those misconceptions that you have to be perfect in all these other areas to start these practices. And I mean, I think we even, we tend to say that because we do these things all day long, but it doesn't have to be that scary to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And just to let you know, I did definitely ask Jason Yee the question that stumped me. So I don't know if since I got an answer, if you still win candy. But yep, you can use the webhooks to fire off the messages to PD or event misuse, or you can use the status checks to do that. And so if you have additional questions on that, you can go over to the Chaos Engineering Slack channel.
Yes.
And we're happy to chat with you all about that. Now, Mandi, next week, both our companies are going to be at KubeCon.
Yeah, so KubeCon runs all of next week. I think the official start is on Sunday, but the on-site stuff starts, I think, Monday with like workshops and other things. And then we're in the virtual booth Wednesday through Friday, and we'll be hanging out there during some of the breaks. we'll be there for morning coffee and for lunch next week. So stop on by. We'll be running some of these, and we'll see who hangs out with us. We're also running a sweepstakes. So if you are signed up for KubeCon, keep an eye out for that. The prizes are crazy. We partnered with a couple of other sponsors, and it's like a Switch and an Apple Watch and some AirPods and a speaker and something else I'm forgetting, that a projector. Like it's a crazy. You're gonna have, if you win it on site, you're gonna have to like buy another suitcase to take it home. Like it's just crazy. So keep an eye out for that, and make sure you visit everybody's booths for
well, and neither one of us are actually going to be there in person, but our colleagues will be. So I know that Scott McAllister is going to be hanging out.
Yes.
At the PagerDuty booth. Jason Yee is going to be hanging out at the Gremlin booth.
Excellent.
Anna Medina, she's given a talk. So stop by and say hi to all of our friends. Mandi and I will be watching from the comfort of our own homes.
Yes, I'll be right here.
Yeah, I'll be right here too. As a matter of fact, I will be right here on Friday with you while we watch this. We're going to replay this in the booth, right? Yeah. Also, one of the things that we did, I do want to talk about this really quick, is we actually launched in June a chaos engineering certificate that you can get. It is free. You can find that on Gremlin. Really exciting. We are getting ready to launch. Just going to give you a little preview. Our second certificate, which comes with a lot of training. So watch for that at the end of the month. We'd love to, get your feedback, and we've seen a lot of excitement around the Gremlin Chaos Engineering Practitioner Certificate, which is the one that we currently have launched. And as I mentioned, that's free. There's some really great resources. Tammy has built a wonderful GitHub repo with amazing resources. And even if you don't take the certificate, maybe you don't want to, these are really great resources to understand the methodologies and the scientific method, how to set up your experiments, even if you're not using Gremlin, but the things that you want to think about abort conditions. And then our Gremlin Certified Chaos Engineering Professional, which will also be a free certificate that you can earn, is going to go a lot deeper into the practices of chaos engineering with Gremlin.
Cool. And I put a link in the chat for your boot camps, because that's another place where folks can get on board with all of that. PagerDuty, they also have some certificates. You can be a PagerDuty certified foundational practitioner, I think is what the first one is for that. Those are on our website as well, but doesn't include all the integrations and all that cool stuff yet. It's the basics of getting set up with PagerDuty. So.
Now the certificate, and Mandi, will you post this for me? So, you know what? It's because I'm not logged in. That's why I can't post anything.
Okay.
There was a Terraform certificate that Scott McAllister launched at Summit, PagerDuty Summit last year. That API one, right?
Oh,
for PagerDuty.
Yeah, there was a test on the API stuff. Where did that get to? I'll have to find it.
I don't know. That one was really, really hard. And Scott's a great teacher. Either way, the purpose of having these types of certifications is to really help educate people and get you prepared to be able to talk about these things and to bring them into your organization, where you can articulate the value and understand the practices of things. Because just like I said, with chaos engineering, sometimes there's a lot of confusion about what it is or what we're doing. With incident response, there's a lot of confusion on how do we handle it, right? And so it's great when you can learn these things and bring them back to your organization.
Yeah, thank you. Blue Sky Cloud. Post the PDU link. PDU is PagerDuty University. That's university.pagerduty.com. We actually, I'll post the link directly to the API Masterclass. That is the API class to give you an intro to all the stuff that the API does, because it's kind of wild. My personal favorite thing is change events. I think they're super amazing, but there's so much other stuff in the API that you can be doing. So,
yeah. Well, Mandi, what else? Do we have anything else to talk about today?
Well, so for folks who are new to all of this chaos engineering stuff, how do they get started? Like, take a boot camp, And like, what should they like be looking at in their own projects as good first targets or first attacks to run, or sort of the first things that they might be looking for there?
Yeah, I mean, especially for first of all, the boot camps, they're free as well, and you can find them. Mandi posted the link. Maybe start with a non-critical service, right? That's a good thing to start with. That's a great thing. You can start in testing, and that's okay. There are some people that say you're not practicing chaos engineering unless you're doing it in production. It's the only way to do it. Some organizations just simply aren't set up for that. Start with one team, one small application. Maybe don't start with your payment processor. Right. So think about that. Definitely think through your hypothesis though, because again, we're following that scientific method. We're looking, what do we currently know? What do we think is going to happen? Okay, we think this is going to happen. Let's design our experiment around that. But as we do that, let's think about when we need to back out of that experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once we've run our experiment, did we prove our hypothesis correct?
Sure.
Great,
yeah.
Right. Did something break that we weren't expecting? That's even it's even more great, because you've just learned something. You've learned about some vulnerability or some failure in your system. So make notes of that. Then once you've remediated these issues, repeat your experiments. You want to repeat, you want to iterate, and you want to share throughout your organization so that you can broaden that awareness. And it's similar to the adoption of PagerDuty. PagerDuty adoption sometimes starts with one team going on call because everybody's afraid, like, I don't want to go on call. What? Right? Yeah. And chaos engineering, you can start with just one team, right? You can start with a small application. So I guess don't boil the ocean.
Right. Oh, for everything. Yeah, 100%.
I know, because it's a thing that people try to do.
And then so some of the stuff that you find as you're running these experiments are your operational requirements. They're not necessarily the features that your users are thinking about, except when they're bad, right? Pages are slow or things aren't working or whatever else. So like, do you have any thoughts about like having that discussion with your product managers, with the rest of your team, about prioritizing all of that functional work that you found in your experiments to say, hey, look, we need to take some points on the next sprint to like fix this thing? It's sort of similar to what happens after an incident. Like something.
Exactly. We talk about this all the time. Product managers are responsible for a good customer experience. Yes. A bad customer experience, product managers really want to care about. So if you've identified something in your chaos engineering experience that is causing that degraded customer experience, that we all have to look at what we prioritize. And we talk that about with incident remediation. Sometimes the ROI of fixing something and making sure it doesn't happen again isn't necessarily worth prioritizing it over something else. But
that is true. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you want to use the data that you've gathered to understand your customers, how they're feeling about your product, how the experience is for them, and then make that argument that no, we do need to prioritize this feature. Or prioritize this fix, prioritize this before we launch that new feature, because sometimes that needs to happen. And I think we've seen this before. Organizations get really excited about launching new features, and we never want to lose track of that customer experience, because if the rest of your product isn't a good experience, why are they going to use these new features? They're going to abandon you before they ever get to it.
Yeah, the field of dreams, like if you build it, they will come thing. That this isn't. People have other options now for almost everything. So
right, when Netflix was just CDs in the mail and we didn't have Redbox. Right
now you're going way back in history, but yeah.
Oh, I just saw a Redbox. I actually just saw a Redbox yesterday,
and I was one at my grocery store.
I know, but still, for some reason, I was a little bit surprised that there was this red box there.
I'm like, I think I have a DVD player. I'm not entirely sure. But...
Mandi, I have a Blu-ray 3D DVD player. Yeah.
Johnny.
Yeah, I actually just recently went to the pawn shops because those are great places to get DVDs for anybody that wants a DVD for $3.99. Scoured through pawn shops for I don't know why. It was like I got in this weird thing and bought a bunch of 3D movies. I have 3D Wizard of Oz, which is weird because they don't actually make 3D TVs anymore, but they still go back and make these 3D movies. Either way, one of the things that we talk about, though, running in production is you don't have some sort of, outdated Blu-ray running against your system and testing, right?
Yeah.
And so also, I'm getting asked a question about, does Gremlin have log out?
Oh, yeah. Scott's got another question there. So
check out over time. But I guess it depends on what do you want to do with your logs. So you want to run it over time.
So that's kind of an interesting question. Like, is Gremlin sort of implemented so that you could add it to your CI pipeline? So as part of your test frameworks, you say, okay, here's my check-in, here's my artifact build, here's my test deploy, run this set of Gremlin attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me grab the link so that you can learn a little bit about more automating with Gremlin. And that's actually Tammy. Tammy did a great YouTube here. Let me just
let's find that for folks.
I have it right here.
Cool. That's a super good question, Scott.
Yeah, really. Okay, see, the thing is I don't know everybody's Twitch handles and their name or Twitter handles and their names, and you do, Mandi.
Of the folks that are chatting, I know that one's an employee and one's not.
There you go. Will you post that for me?
Awesome.
And you can check out our YouTube channel too. There's some great videos on here. And then Jason Yee has a YouTube channel, which is linked here, where you can learn a lot more about that. If you don't want to look at YouTube and more prefer reading, let me get a link here. Here. Some great information. Mandi, can you pop that in?
Oh, okay. We can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so like some of our customers, so I'm just going to let you know, I'm going to be honest. I pinged Jason in the background. I have only been at Gremlin since July 26th. And actually I was out for a little bit of the time that I've been here. And so let's have Jason Yee for the win on the answers here. So some of our customers will use the API to export info on past attacks and use that to generate reports of how services were tested over time. Also, we do have service discovery, and it'll show the attacks that have been run on that service over time. And so actually I can show you that right now too.
Oh, all right. Let's do that.
So we got time with me. Let me see if it's going to get mad at me right now with my 16,000 windows open.
I don't know how you find anything.
Who's the employee that's chatting with us?
I'm pretty sure May is on here in our.
Hey, May. Chat. Hi.
Yeah. All right. Here's Julie's screen again.
Okay. Actually, let me see here, because I don't think that is the right link. Yeah. Okay. So we can see that there were 2 attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go into the service and the service details and see the attacks that were run against those too.
Oh, okay.
So these were successful attacks. And so absolutely play around with that. And just to let you know, with your Gremlin free, you'll have access to these things too.
What's the difference between a free account and a paid account for Gremlin?
The amount of hosts.
Oh, okay.
Or the amount of attacks that you can run. Okay. Yeah. So really not that much different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Super.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Scott, what else would you like to know? He says, this is dope. And it absolutely is.
That is great. That just made me super happy.
Absolutely. So I'll plug our future engagements. So at the end of the month, Julie and I will be at All Day DevOps. We're actually giving a talk that's a bit of an expansion of this. So we're going to be talking, what do we call this? We called it Reducing Trauma in Production with SLOs and Chaos Engineering. And we will be on All Day DevOps at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I'm not sure I can link directly to it from the schedule, but I'll post the schedule in the chat. So if you're thinking about signing up for All Day DevOps, they do run a pretty good schedule, and we'll be on there in the evening. So we'll be talking about this stuff. We'll be talking about the actual mechanics of SLIs and SLOs and how it relates into all this. So it'll be super fun. So.
Yeah. And it should be fun. And I'm kind of really excited to dive deeper into that too, because I know that was a question and I don't think we want to do another hour-long Twitch stream on top of this to talk about like setting up SLOs, right? Like it's not a thing that we got. I mean, still, how do you do it, right? And it's interesting because again, it's okay to ask those questions. I think that what's really important to remember is that we want to answer those types of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And some people feel like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to ask that. It seems like I should know that. We're all starting somewhere. And that's why take advantage of coming to these talks. I'm really excited about All Day DevOps.
It'd be super good. Like, but the crazy part is like, none of us were born knowing any of this. Half this stuff didn't exist 5 years ago. So like,
right?
Okay, maybe you're Mr. Cool Guy and you learned about it 4 years ago, but like you're only 4 years ahead of people who are just learning it today. Like it's not centuries of lore, right? Like you have a little bit of a head start and it's all going to change next week anyway, because that's just the way things are. So like chill out.
Yeah, I mean, what was DevOps 2009? Was that the infamous offsite manifesto?
Little Idea was in here at the very beginning, but I think he's dropped off and he knows all the...
I was wondering if that was him. I was like, I know who that is, but yeah, I mean, and we're still talking about what DevOps is and how do you adopt these practices, right? And the same thing with chaos engineering. Chaos engineering hasn't been around for 20 years, right? There's some lore about where it started and who started it and all of that. There's a lot of public talk about what was done at Netflix. We tend to reference that a lot, right? With Chaos Monkey. I mean, and Bruce Wong and his involvement in that. And, and Colton Andrus and this group that started this. And we see these things evolve over time, right? So again, we're not just...
It's not BGP.
This is why I can't read stuff and talk at the same time, because but again, I may have started out just randomly unplugging things. But now where are we and how do we become I don't know if it's going to be too soon for that. I don't think it's ever too soon yet. I mean,
no,
we all love
Tuesday was good.
Yeah, right. But how do we evolve these things that we talk about over time to become better?
Yes. Well, we want to produce better tools, right? And make the tools better for all the users and also make them more accessible so that they can make their stuff better. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to load up my phone and use the products produced by half of our customers anyway. So I want their stuff to be good. I know you want their stuff to be good. And that way we have to make our own stuff good.
Yeah. And then we also have to remember that we're humans and let's be nice to each other and realize that we're all learning in the process. Like those poor Facebook engineers, I feel bad for them. What?
I'm a leaf on the wind, just floating along. Yes.
But yeah, for those of you that want to hang with Mandi again at All Day DevOps, Mandi, will I be able to actually hang with you in the booth on Friday as this is rolling?
I think so, yeah.
All right. We'll figure that out. Mandi and I are around. We love hanging with people. We're both in the Chaos Engineering Slack channel, so you can hit us both up there. Jason's over there too, so we can totally to bug him, but there's really no bugging. We love answering questions.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. And yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if nobody has any honest questions, like we could go off the rails and chatter about other things for a couple minutes, but yeah, It's not BGP, man. It's never BGP. That's what you're going to have to add, right? It's like for like next year, for like April 1st or something, you need like a Netflix or a Facebook attack. And all it does is like it blasts all of your routes completely off the internet, so that, or completely dev nulls all of your DNS just for the heck of it.
You know, it was actually one of the attacks I was playing with, because you can run a DNS attack. And I was like, is it too soon? Is it too soon? So to be fair, I did almost too soon at myself. I wanted to play around with that. And I'm like, I mean, the one thing we don't want to do is poke fun at our engineer friends, the people that actually
had a bad day
with this. Like,
yeah,
it's easy to laugh, to joke about it now because it's Facebook. It's a big company. They're having a rough week in general. But we have to remember that our friends and other people like us were on the other side having, the worst day ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so that's one of the things that actually I was pretty impressed with on Twitter, seeing the people just like offering support to the folks working in the back to bring up Facebook.
Yeah.
And WhatsApp and Instagram, like things that are so important and integral to our survival that we can't go 6 hours without them.
I had to go to Imgur for my cat pictures, right? So like it's fine, but it's just not the same.
I was in the middle of an important meeting when my mother called, and I didn't have my computer on Do Not Disturb, so it decided to ring, and I muted everything, and I answered the phone, and she was like, "Is Facebook down?"
This is Julie's new Netcool service. You just have to call her and or call Scott and
right. But then you want to know, my mom followed up with Scott, and I was like, "Yes, Facebook is down. I'm busy." She's like, "Is that what you're working on?"
Oh, geez.
I was like, "No, Mom, no, Mom. If the internet was broken, right? Because if Facebook is down, the internet is broken." I think the funniest thing is when I was like, "Is this not working?" I just went over to Twitter, and I just because
everybody went over to Twitter,
right? So at least we've got great ways to verify it.
Well, yes. Like we're at the point now where like I have better connectivity to my friends than Facebook had on their core networks. Like it was just kind of like, if I can't talk to you on Twitter, then maybe I can find you on a Discord or on half a dozen other Slacks, or if it all fails, you can just text me. Like there's that. But yeah, so
actually that's an important thing though, right? As a company, and we have this at PagerDuty. We have it there. You have it. I work at Gremlin now, so I still am in the we part. I think, I've heard you say we for AOL. I swear I've heard it.
In the past tense.
Your status. You need to be able to have a way to communicate with your customers when your website is down. What was it? Was it the AWS outage, the S3 one, that their status page was actually showing? That you couldn't access their status page? Was that the one, or was that one of the?
It might have been, yeah.
Yeah. Either way, make sure you're honest with your customers about what's going on. Test your systems.
Yes.
Use chaos engineering to build a more reliable internet, so that our moms do not call us.
That is the key output metric right there. So your mom does not have to call you in a panic because the internet is down.
Because the internet is down.
Yeah, US East 1 has a storied history of.
Yeah.
I used to live near US East 1, so when I lived in Northern Virginia, all those data centers are in like Data Center Alley in the eastern part of Loudoun County, and like they were early. They were really early data centers. Like that stuff was UUNet in the earliest days in the 90s, and like that's where that backbone came from, and that's why that stuff was there. And like some of that stuff was really early and not up to what we can put together now. So.
See, but you can use chaos engineering to recreate these things to make sure that
I want to make the internet like it was in 1999.
I was thinking about it though, Mandi. We have had in the past 3 months, we've had how many major outages? We had the
I think people are exhausted. Like the stuff is hard to do when you're at the top of your game and you're 2 years into an exhausting, stressful, psychologically exhausting pandemic. And I think people in our neck of the woods, in our industry, who are usually kind of on the edge of being exhausted anyway, quite honestly. There's a lot of burnout in our industry. I think people are just kind of done. Like there's too much going on. And the unfortunate part is, and I'll rant a little bit about DORA, but like the DORA report this year, if you haven't read it yet, like they're saying that productivity went up. Like that is freaking crazy. That is absolutely nuts. People have a million other things to be worried about. Their kids are in and out of school on a daily basis. You don't know what is going on there, but productivity is up. Like that seems nuts.
At
right?
the same time, where did we have to go? What did we have to do? There
Well,
are only so many shows on Netflix to watch.
Well, you would know.
Well, yeah, because I tend to.
Have you watched Squid Game yet? I have not fired that up yet.
Watched it.
Okay.
I have not watched it. I just re-binged watched Lock and Key, which is excellent on Netflix. I got to say, lots of fun. Really, I think it says it's like for kids, but definitely not for kids. Kind of scary because the new season is coming out October 22nd. But there's that. So nobody had anywhere to go. But then what has happened with burnout? Who's measuring the burnout from all of this productivity that increased? I mean, I know that one of the things that Mandi and I did, and I think it was really helpful, at least it was helpful for my sanity. We would, first of all, we'd have a Zoom meeting where we were actually working on something, but then 10 minutes later, we realized we were working on our own stuff. So we would have Zoom meetings. Mandi would throw on some great tunes in the background and we'd sit there and just co-work.
Yeah.
Because that's the type of interaction as well. Just that human interaction where you just randomly think of something funny and share it with the other person. We can't walk over to somebody's desk now.
Yeah.
Although I did just see a LinkedIn poll about an hour before I hopped on this, and I guess there's an article about how people want to return to the office.
I think it's a lie.
I think it is too.
I think people want to get back to the rest of their lives. I don't know that they want to get back to the office. At least to 5 days a week, right?
Yeah. I mean, I want to get back on, I want to get back on a plane so I can see my friends. And actually one of the things that we can't recreate with conferences, like I'm an organizer at DevOps Days Boise, and you can't recreate the hallway track.
Yeah, that's tough.
And you're right. You can't use chaos engineering to drop a silver medal in the ceiling unless you throw your computer with Gremlin loaded on it at the ceiling too far.
Yeah, I think that's one of those ones where like you really can't predict what's gonna happen at all there. Like, okay, so why is the top thing in the rack gonna do something weird? And yeah, maybe IoT devices, that's sort of the next sort of thing that we've been kicking around is like, what does this IoT do for all of this stuff? Because like all your edge sensors and all that weird stuff out there is kind of crazy. But
yeah. I do want to point out really quick though, that if you are in the Gremlin app, because I forgot to say this, we actually have some built out recommended scenarios that are already built out for people.
Okay.
So like you can test certification expiration, validate your
certification. Yes. Certificate expiration. That's a good one. Absolutely.
Right? Like people forget about that. Or, I mean, I know that time changes in theory don't make that big of a difference anymore. But anymore. My bank still goes down. Still goes down every daylight savings time.
At least half of my gray hair is because of the way AOL server and early Java servers could not handle daylight savings time.
Yeah.
Could not.
It is 2021 and my bank still cannot handle it, but I'm basically too lazy to transfer all my payment information online over to a different bank.
Yeah. It's our goal. All right. Thank you for joining us today. I'm glad you liked it. Check back. Keep an eye on us. Make sure you follow. We'll be here hanging out.
Yeah, we will. Either way, check out the recommended scenarios.
Yeah.
Check out the information on status checks. This is all about safety. We're not just unplugging stuff or throwing our computers at ceilings for fun. All right.
I will leave you with one crazy other thing that you could never test for.
Okay.
So in the lore, right, back in the day, a certain large internet access provider had some points of presence in London that would start behaving strangely in the evenings. It wasn't necessarily the same time the entire year, but sometime in the evening, things would just flake out. And they rebuilt some things, they moved things around, they tried to figure out what's going on. Turned out that the ancient system for the streetlights that had been built in the earliest parts of the 20th century was interfering with some of the gear in that point of presence, and the modems would no longer pick up when the streetlights came on in the evening. So it wasn't the same time every year. It was just like sunset.
Really?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now I'm going to Google this and find the whole.
I'm not sure that ever got documented publicly, but that was a crazy one that I heard when I joined AOL years ago. So
I like it. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, like there's always going to be some weird out there, so protect the things that you could. So.
Yeah, test for the things that you don't know.
Nova is always the center of the internet universe.
The 5 whys should have led you to that answer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. I think we're at time, Mandi?
Yep, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Julie, thank you for coming on today and having a good time with us. This is super interesting for folks out there who are, thinking about practicing some chaos engineering, getting to learn more about how your applications behave under certain kinds of stresses. Check out Gremlin. Hook it into your PagerDuty account so you know exactly what's going on all the time. We'd love to see that. If you would like to be on our stream, if you have interesting things that you're doing, you can join us on PagerDuty Garage on Mondays and Fridays. We'd love to see you there. If you want to drop me a line, you can tweet at me. I'm LNXCHK on Twitter, or you can email our team at community-team@pagerduty.com. We would love to hear from you and see what you're doing. Julie, where can folks find you?
Mandi, folks can find me at Julie_Gund on Twitter. And you can find me in the Chaos Engineering Slack, which you had a little banner created for that.
Yep.
And that is chaosengineering.slack.com. You can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Julie Gunderson. And I think I have an idea who Birdface Boston might just be. So thank you also for joining. And then sometimes you can just find me hanging out with Mandi when we give talks at conferences. The next one is All Day DevOps. And then Mandi, I do believe that we are also going to be speaking at KubeCon.
That got delayed until next year, but folks to join us there. 100%. So
in the new year, and we'll be around. So thanks for having me. This was lots of fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
And we'll catch up later.
All right, thanks everybody. Make sure you follow all of our channels. We are here on twitch.tv/PagerDuty. We're also on twitch.tv/PDCommunity. If you are joining us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll be back next week with more stuff on Twitch.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you never miss a stream. Follow us at PD Community and PagerDuty on twitch.tv. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you'd like to be on our stream, email us at community-team@pagerduty.com so we can feature the cool things you're doing. And don't forget, check out all of our global events on our calendar at pagerduty.com/events.